7:30 precisely, and it's time for us to go into the national news headlines and international news in brief. Joining Kayode Bakare and myself, or rather just national news headlines, excuse me. Joining Kayode Bakare and myself, we've got a repeat of our panelists from yesterday, which is actually pretty exciting, I have to say. Orji Uka, good morning. Orji, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning.
Fantastic.
Good morning.
Great to have you here. Gbolahan, good morning. Mr. G Quest, that's what you can find him as on Twitter. How are you?
Good morning, Folu. I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. And we've got Fred, Alison, welcome. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Excellent. Welcome. All looking very dapper. And if you don't believe me, go to our YouTube channel and check it out for yourself. Also, don't forget to please use the hashtag FreshlyPress981 as we discuss the very interesting stories of this morning. Of course, a couple of us got into the conversation online already yesterday. Big shout out to Orji for tweeting. And of course, you know, some of his predictions came true. So we'll be tackling that in just a moment. Again, that
to you with this one, Orji. This one says National Assembly invasion. Osinbajo sacks DSS. Dara replaces him with Seiyefa, and this comes from the Punch newspaper. Today, the Director General of the Department of State Services, Lawal Dara, a top government official, confirmed that he was sacked, and he was also handed over to enforcement agencies immediately after his termination, and also basically he was to debrief the person who he was going to be relieved for. So generally, we talked about this yesterday, and Orji, I think it's come to light again. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay, first thing first, we can never fully understand what transpired yesterday. The waves of speculations, different theories flying left, right, and center. But one thing is certain, I'm happy that as we speak this morning, we still have democracy. Nobody died, hopefully, and all is well that ends well. It hasn't ended, it's drama. Okay, so this is that of yesterday has ended. He who fights another day will fight another day. I'll try and make sense of what happened yesterday, to the best of my knowledge, and then of course in line with what we have in the story here. So yesterday morning, while we're on Freshly Press here, information that the National Assembly had been blockaded by men of the DSS and Nigerian police. You remember 2 weeks earlier, exactly 2 weeks ago, the homes of both the Senate prisons, because all of these things are interconnected.
Yes.
Their houses were blockaded, of which at the end of the day, Senate President Saraki was able to, I don't know how it came out, yeah, speculations here and there, but one thing is certain, he ended up in the house, and the house carried on, and then he proceeded on recess. So the story is, at the end of the day, they gained entrance. These are only PDP members, just need to mention that. That got in. There were no APC members around from the story you hear. At the end of the day, Nigerians condemned it. There was widespread outrage, both from Nigerians and from the international community. Next thing we heard was that the acting president had removed the DG of the DSS. For me, this was huge.
And it was quick.
And it was quick. I've never seen the kind before. And then there was widespread access by majority of Nigerians. The funny thing is that both PDP and APC tried to take credit, because we understand that at the end of the day, we heard stories that the DSS or SSS was in fact working for Saraki and all of that. But the reason given here is that it was an affront on the acting president. The story here is that the acting president summoned him. First of all, he delayed in coming for about 4 hours. IGP came and told the acting president, I have no hand in this. This is not all my people. The only police officers there are those who are ordinarily posted to the National Assembly. But the DSS, who had mobilized about 100 of his officials there, all of them on hooded masks, did not respond, and then said he was acting on powers from above. Who is above? Because the acting president is the #1 person in the country right now, and you see you're acting from above. At the end of the day, he was invited to the president, to the state house, and whilst he was there, he was issued with a letter terminating his employment. There were also speculation that he tried to challenge the acting president of here, but the important thing is that he has left. We have a new acting SSS, and importantly, it does not end there, because we understand he was handed over to the police for possible prosecution. Because if what he did yesterday if what we hear is what he did yesterday, it was treason. You don't challenge the authority of the acting president by saying you were acting on powers of above. It means you don't accord him the recognition. He is the acting president. Yes. We expect him to be tried and prosecuted for treason. No stories here. I've tried to avoid all the other speculations because we know how. When I go back on Twitter, I'll continue.
But it was also gathered sometime that President Muhammadu Buhari had been having issues with him, prior to this time.
I don't even know what to make. That's what it was. It's also mentioned here. I don't know what to make of that story. When he wasn't removed, And then I should also mention that the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Reps consequently issued a joint statement where they described as a coup against democracy. But what I don't like about the statement is that they've praised their colleagues who stood up to be counted, but there was no reference to the removal of the DG DSS. I thought they should have been charitable to the acting president.
Orji, here are a couple of things I want everyone to think about, and also please send in your comments as well. The WhatsApp number is 0809-444-0981. Several times we've seen several of our security apparatus acting outside of what we consider the norm. My concern, and I think a question that has been sort of whispered in the fringes, is have we lost actual control, or does the government have any control of any of the security apparatus?
Yes.
Because if you can tell the acting president of the country that you are acting on orders from above, I think that's worrying. If the police at different points then go off on their own and carry out certain actions, that is very worrying.
It is. Okay, that is one. The 3 schools of thought of what could have happened yesterday. One was that the acting president did not know what happened. So what happened was without his authorization and knowledge. Okay. And then when he realized, he had to act. The second school of thought is that what happened yesterday was with not his authorization, but he heard about it, confronted the DGDSS, who told him off and said, I'm acting on orders of above, and he also had to act. The third one is the other speculation that he was aware, but because the whole thing backfired, someone had to be the fall guy. So whichever one you believe, both 3 of them are not good for our democracy and our country at this time. But I think it's well handled so far.
All right.
Let's see what happens today.
Thank you very much, Orji, for that one. Coming to you with this one, Gbolahan. NLC accuses NCC of aiding MTN to undermine Nigerian laws. This from the ThisDay newspaper. Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress has accused the Nigerian Communications Commission of aiding telecommunications giants, that's MTN, Nigeria, to disobey extant Nigerian laws and international labor laws and convention, which the country signed since 1960. Well, they're also accusing them of quite a number of things. They're accusing them of subjecting Nigerian workers to untold hardship and unfriendly labor practices, also funding their global operation with funds made from Nigeria while subjecting Nigerian workers to untold hardship. Your thoughts about this one?
Yes, tribunals, or you take it to the court.
Yes.
Of the
National Industrial Court.
National Industrial Court, exactly. You take it rather than actually doing it in this manner. And when we talk of, it doesn't actually represent the image of the country in positive light. About investing in the country, we're talking about foreign investment, and this is not the way you treat foreign investors anyway. You do not treat them in this way. You handle the situation in a more appropriate manner. So it's rather unfortunate that we're seeing this, but to force MTN in joining the union.
Well, can I just comment on something? As you mentioned, there have been a lot of issues surrounding this particular telco, and I'm just going to stop giving free advertisement, essentially, for quite a while. I mean, to say that, yes, the NLC does have its own problems, and they do have their own employees, or some employees that had come out to say, well, some things are not really as they should be. And again, it brings to mind, is there smoke without fire? Because if these issues keep circulating or circling around this particular institution or this particular in our economy.
Well, yes, you do have a point there, but the question you should ask as well, is this the appropriate way of handling the situation? Especially when we talk about damages to properties as well, too. It doesn't actually, there's no excuse for this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Gbolahan.
Okay, so still coming back to some of our stories here. This one here says Nigeria's woes is now worse than Somalia. This is from the Vanguard newspaper, and I'm coming to you, Fred, on this one. Okay, so for the second consecutive quarter in 2018, number 1 position in the number of recorded attacks against vessels in the second quarter in 2018. They say that the first 6 months of 2018 saw a significant...
There's a decline, I don't know if there's a decline in duration, because it goes from the attacks are the leading attack is on bulk carrier, and bulk carrier carries like grains, cements, things like that. I think probably those things are easier to pick up, and then tanker vessels, trajectory downwards. So let's first deal with like saving lives. Then we deal with attacks on the vessels. And the other thing that caught my attention in the article was that the Nigerian agency claims that this is being done by I don't know if I should be worried or not, because how would someone else from a different country have the audacity and
Well, Fred, here's some issues that actually do affect it. Is it's not quite the border, right? So we are looking at the Gulf, which Nigerians kicked up a fuss. They said, no, why are we involving? But then if those men and women are perhaps some of the best in the world at protecting or conducting warfare, perhaps we should be going in that direction. But a more imminent concern as well is the financial cost that it has on people bringing in goods into the country, because we're seeing now, as a result of the increased level of piracy in the water surrounding Nigeria, a number of shippers are having to spend a lot more on security just to bring that in. Looking at that and the confluence of elections that are coming up, I mean, how do you think this is going to play out for us, really, as a nation financially, just from a businessman's perspective?
I guess it depends on whose business are you looking at. So the pirates are out for business.
Well,
at the expense of all of us, of course. Insurance company are making more money, because now it's you have to insure your vessels. Obviously, we want the concern to be for the
to this story in from the Punch newspaper, talking about the CBN, since we are looking at businesses at the moment. And I am going to go over to Gbolahan for this one. I'm very curious to know what your takes are. Speaking of business and looking at the way that the economy is being shaped, sort of leading up to the elections and the influence that has, the Punch newspaper gives us this headline: to tighten the monetary policy in response to higher inflation ahead of the general elections in February. Your thoughts on this?
They have been having this discussion or this debate as well, to running up to an election,
Yes.
which is usually the norm anyway. There's going to be a lot of politicians careful about as well too, is the budget as well too, that is now going to be rolled out as well. So we're talking about money that should have been spent over the course of a 1 year period, now going to be spent over 6 months or within 6 months or so. So of course there's every potential that there will be a rise in inflation. But when you look at the flip side of it as well, so currently we're looking at the economy that is almost tilting up, going back into I wouldn't actually say a recession, but we're not growing at the moment. It's actually rumor has it that currently our second quarter GDP will most likely be lower than the first GDP figures that we had, of about 1.6 at the moment. So we're not growing at the moment. And so when you look at that situation on ground, and you're now talking of increasing the interest rate, making it harder from a hard place at the moment now. But
It's very interesting. There are differing views over here. A number of views are expressed. For example, a former Director General of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu, said that Keels and Ballistic, who is up on our live feed. Hello to everyone out there on YouTube.
It says, hi guys, how about the arrogance of the government's appointee? I guess the appointment is a form of reward. The pretty had a hand in the president's win, and probably have something on him as well. This one from
says he find two toes, all because of 2019 hard-fought democracy, which people died for, has been dragged in the courts. It's rather dramatic stuff there.
Lawmakers can be so violated by orders from above. What's the fate of the common Nigerians? It's overly important that someone be held accountable.
Indeed. It was also very just saying sometimes the people you fight for questionable, because there were shots being handed around, shots of hard liquor first thing in the morning. Yes, and there are pictures up online that you can see that. So I don't know if I should say a big shout out to our lawmakers there, but I guess that's how you start off the day. All right, let's keep it moving though. We've got more. Fred, I'm going to come back to you for this one. Let's talk a little bit about education, shall we? We've got an article from the Punch newspaper that says a strike is imminent as ASUU rejects Babalakin-led renegotiation.
You know, they figure that he's a stumbling block, or he's not trying to make the process go further. But he might just be a strategy he's using to wear them out, get them to.
But is that a sensible thing right now, when we do know that looking at the way that the government has treated education, the education sector, looking at the several times that listen, we're going on strike, and they've done it because I mean, who are the people bearing the real cost of this? It's the students. It's people who need an education.
The university body said they're going on strike has kind of like lost its bite, So I think that all that is playing out in this
that strikes seem to be the place that most people go to, but let's move on to our next story, shall we? Coming up next, let's talk about Lagos State from the Guardian newspaper. The ADP urges more transparency in Lagos State revenue and debt profiles. We're talking about the of the general person as well, saying that, listen, Lagos needs to be more transparent in the way that they render accounts of stewardship and the way resources are being managed. Your thoughts, Gbolahan?
Yes, of course, I think when we're looking at what Lagos State, when you look at the recent tax increases on properties at the moment, oh yes, you definitely do need accountability. Now, right now, at the moment, what the report is actually saying is that the debt management agency is reporting that Lagos State is actually in debt to the tune of 1.5. Anyway, it's the general notion that Lagos, if we're moving forward as well, it's very important that we get.
If we are earning the sort of funds that are being put out there, it's really just about managing our debt and making sure it's being repaid appropriately.
Absolutely. There's no problem borrowing money. Everybody borrows. Banks, businesses borrow. As long as you are able to repay conveniently.
Transparency. Orji, let's quickly go over to this next one. We knew that Senator Akpanio would be making some kind of... Akpanio has resigned as Senate Minority Leader. That's Senator Godswill Akpanio. We also know that he has officially defected from PDP to APC. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is another installment of the drama going on at the tug of war, and one of the questions, one of the areas of dispute is as to who is majority. So if Senator Akpanio resigns, if Senator Akpanio so I think it just makes sense for him to resign as minority leader, particularly because APC says they are in the majority. But so that was right.
It would have made sense for a lot of people when they were switching and jumping party lines to have resigned their position as well. Because let us remember that even though it hasn't really been challenged, and we tend not to want to challenge as part of the constitution, you are not supposed to jump party lines. It's not something that should be happening. And really, if you have been given a seat, because people have voted according to parties, not personalities. Because remember, when we go thumbprint and we cast our votes, we cannot vote for individuals. We vote for a
I don't like to speculate, but I think he was seriously pressured, because that's what a lot of people are saying. Senator Akpanio was made the minority leader despite the fact that he was not a ranking senator, which
of challenging this defection in court. I suppose the situation is that who's going to bail the cat, and what you would find out is that, of course, no one would be ready to challenge it, because who knows, down the line, whoever might need to defect as well too down the line. So none of them is going to. They won't actually challenge it.
Just a comment, please. His actions have also had repercussions. Someone has been removed as commissioner in Akwa Ibom State because there's a huge fight between. There had been a fight which we didn't know between President Governor Odom and
I'm going to try and take quite a few from WhatsApp. Chris says, given that some security agencies have exceeded their bounds in the past, and rather than call them to order, the presidency said that its agencies are free to do their jobs as they understand it, of employees in questionable working conditions. What you see in Nigeria are unions clamoring for better pay and benefits. Employment is a choice, not your right. If you're not happy with your compensation, then either look for a new job or go about expressing your grievance in a civil manner. Vandalizing property in the spirit of protest completely nullifies the entire point of unions and organizing. While someone comments straight away on Akpabio's resignation, this is in from Big T.
He says here, Akpabio's resignation is a political move to put pressure on Saraki to do same. In Nigeria, it's party politics. We do not have independent candidates. Otherwise, this is Big T.
All right, thank you very much for that. Our final story, very quickly, account maintenance charges. How 5 banks have raked in about 12.2 billion naira in 6 months. Read it. They've revealed 5 commercial banks, including, of course, First Bank, Diamond, Union, Sterling, and First City. Deposits, please. Your thoughts on this story?
I don't blame them. I blame the CBN.
Yeah.
I blame the CBN for this. They came out and told us that COT fees. And the truth is that although they say it is 1 naira for each 1,000 naira in your account, but they charge next year. The truth is that because the money isn't a lot, so well, it's a lot for some people. Because the money is not a lot, we tend to not say anything about it, so we keep quiet. You see 2,000 naira deduction from your account, just say, anyway, I don't have strength. Who wants to go to court because of 2,000 naira? Next thing, we now know that from 2,000 naira from 10 million people, and all these figures have come up to, it is a huge, huge sum of money. 12.2 billion.
Today's a Wednesday, so we will be talking sports inside the locker room at 8:15. Good morning.
Bye.
Line. Because you know this conversation has been going on since 2009.
But this is our time for wrapping up.
Just as an aside, I would say it's high-handed in the handling of it because
Who's that?
Yeah,
You mean
that's why
Babalakin?
that's why you don't comment on
going
it.
to go to school. He even said, so someone has to bring them on. So it's either the schools will be made, either federal government will bring the money and fund the schools, and people will go to school for free, which is not even possible. Even in real schools, we send our children to school outside of the country. A lot of these schools, Harvard, Yale, name them, have funding. Not necessarily ordinarily. There's something called tutorial, which is not what they do. Tutorial is you have a lecturer who just comes funds.
Theory.
So the point for university in Nigeria is nothing other than fun.
Oh,
Fun
yeah,
to build
of course,
infrastructure, fun to have lectures.
The government needs to be pressured into pumping more money into education.
This part, I think is not. I think government. I think we're from the alumni. So when we're not looking at that segment, we're not reaching out to the alumni to be able to raise money or to be able to put down money towards funding education. So we're only looking at the government
I hear that. What I'm talking
issue.
about is the entire education. I'm not talking about universities. I'm saying that we are breeding thugs in Nigeria, and we should all be afraid for our lives.
That's
Because people do not understand how to think.
Yes.
Because from the bottom up, we have thugs and fund it into education so that people understand how to reason. We are going to have civil war in Nigeria.
Yes, so it doesn't.
That is my
it might not
position.
even be money, you know, because it's like, what's that thing? They have like.
Yet, because it could be looked at as an inciting statement. So just pause on that. But hold it, save it.
You
We'll
know,
look at it later.
so like we have what they just have like Doctors Without Borders. We have like programs that use those examples, because we have programs like that people just volunteer their time and they go and do that. You know, maybe you can get credit for it, you can get tax credit, whatever it is, you can get something for doing that. So we're missing those parts of the.
How do you encourage trust in this country?
Now that is where private.
How would you encourage? Because if you don't do it, your
with
education.
private people, right, is that where we should be getting people that are sponsoring Big Brother, etc., etc. These are the things that we should be pushing towards. The reason America is where it is because Hollywood was part of a government-funded program to influence the way that Americans think. America is great, did not fall from the sky.
It was planned, it was
comic
orchestrated.
books, it was films, it was orchestrated.
It was what they were selling
But
to
then
people.
the problem is you have such a mass majority that don't even, when you say things that make sense here, do you know the response you get all the time? Especially if you say
it's abroad. There's English abroad thing. Yeah,
abroad.
of course. Things don't work that way here. But sometimes you always wonder as well. It's like, don't you want to aspire to do better?
Because people
Why are we
don't
always
even
thinking of
understand.
this?
Yeah, but that's not how they
because people
see
don't
better
understand what
as.
to
They see
think.
better as how the politician sees
It's-
better.
yes,
They don't
but
see it
then
as
it's a-
progressive.
but that's my
They
thing.
don't
It's
see
a
it
lack
as
this into education. So you can say the education sector, this is what you have, right? So put it towards creating cartoons. I don't care how, be creative about how you use it, but it needs
Just
to happen.
transmit the message, educate people. But
when you're negotiating for government,
Yes.
and government, you still look, I need, because
Yeah.
you're that's what I'm talking about negotiation.
Yes, yeah.
You are actually on the side of the government,
Yeah.
and you talk to this people and say, look. And then how are those people even approaching the argument?
Yeah.
They're
You
probably
mean-
coming
they're
there
not
and say,
approaching it like
government
that.
has money, they're
Give
spending money
us
on this,
money.
give us money.
Yeah.
They're not even trying to be
no,
creative.
but you blame them though when they look at the expense money that is being spent in the system as well,
So you
so,
have
and
to
we're
do
asking for
what
something
you're
that is
doing.
not even as much as
It's
what
a
we
rock
people
and a hard
spend.
place. It's
So
tough.
let's look for.
Well, you kind of come up with creative ways other than selling handouts.
Well, the only creative way is to private the
Gentlemen,
university.
please, let's be strolling up.
Welcome.